Alrighty, welcome. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you're having a great day out there that's coming into the fall season. I hope you guys are enjoying the seasonal change. I know I am. I know our dog Charlie is going to be very excited about it. She's been itching like crazy lately with fleas. We've tried so many things. We've tried diatomaceous earth. Next up to try is the, what is that called? The turpentine. We're going to try the turpentine next. But she's itching like crazy, so hopefully that all goes away soon. And I hope you guys are enjoying your week and your upcoming weekend. This is episode 601. Can you believe that? 601 shows. We started this show all the way back in 2012. And so we've interviewed a lot of people. And if you guys haven't checked out our latest shows, let me bring that up. And just to let you guys know of some of our more recent shows that we've had. Had some really cool guests lately. And let's see, scroll down here on our homepage of Extreme Health Radio. Recently we had Dr. Richard Massey. These are all the podcast versions of the show. So if you're subscribed to us on the podcast, then these are the latest shows. We're got kind of backlogged a little bit. And so now we're doing some shows live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. So you guys can join us on YouTube and on Facebook and all that good stuff. Joining us live. But Richard Massey was on the show. He's always a fun guest. I love him a lot. Karen Urbanic, and we talked about her journey through healing epileptic seizures naturally, which is crazy. She has a crazy story. Then we have Dr. Veronique Desagne, I think is how you say her name, French name, episode 578 on healing breast cancer. She has a pretty tremendous story about her own journey with breast cancer. And then we had Dr. John Bergman on the show. We talked with Nicholas Pineau about the dangers of 5G. I shared some ideas about immune system. We had Dr. Jack Cruz on talking about light, and Dr. Mark Circus talking about molecular hydrogen, digestion tips, and a lot of cool stuff. So if you guys want to join us, the live show is at Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. So we'd love to have you join us in the chat and ask your questions. Today we have Mr. Atom Bergstrom, and I was going through, he needs no introduction because everybody knows who Atom is, and he's just this hidden gem in the alternative health world, and we just love him so much. I was going through our old sort of numbers, and this is the 20th time Atom Bergstrom has been on the show. Adam, can you believe that? You've been on 20 times.
Amazing.
Isn't that amazing? It's crazy. Yeah, it's you've probably been on more than any other guest we've had, but oh man, you always have new information because you're always studying and learning, aren't you?
I'm a research junkie, definitely.
Yeah, you don't have to go no longer to the library, do you? You can do it all online, kinda.
It's much easier. I used to haunt medical libraries and be there from sometimes 7:30 in the morning till they kicked me out at 2 o'clock at night.
Oh my gosh.
Now you can...
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
What possessed you to do all that? What possessed you to stay up and to learn and to research till 2, 3 in the morning? Like, what made you do that, do you think?
You know, I got started in this because of a health problem. And I always was interested in information, history, things like that. But when I got sick, I decided I'd figure it out myself because the doctors were not giving me correct answers. And I started giving them suggestions, which they panned out. So anyway, that's how I got started.
So how old were you when you started with your own health condition that you had going on?
I was already experimenting with fasting when I was in the 9th and 10th grade. I was reading Yogananda back in 1955.
Oh my gosh.
And fasting and seeing what it would do to my body and things like that. Then I got a mysterious fever when I got out of high school. I had a fever of 99, which I didn't know is healthy. You're supposed to be 99 degrees at 3 to 5 in the afternoon at urinary bladder time. But I actually had to get my appendix taken out when I was perfectly healthy and too stupid to know the difference.
Wow. So so this was right after high school when you...
Yeah, right after high school. I believed I started, you see, that's where a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. If you look, you'll see that you're supposed to be 98.6. Well, every afternoon about 5 o'clock, I got to be 99.6. And I thought, my God, something must be wrong with me. So I went
Wow.
to doctors for it, like a stupid idiot, and uh, and I got to know a lot about doctors. I made friends with my doctor. He was a nice guy, but I tried every antibiotic in the world. They finally put me on. He said either blood transfusions or off for 3 months. Well, that was a no-brainer. I took 3 months off, and then I took another 3 months off, and then I switched professions at that point. I was in the aerospace industry at that
Oh
time.
my gosh. Wow. Wow. What a crazy story. So, why do you say, and I agree with you about this, by the way, but why do you say that, like a stupid idiot, you went to the doctor? Because that's most
Well,
people's, idea, right? They go to the doctor if they're sick, right?
yeah, they do. I haven't been to a doctor or dentist in a long time now. They have value if you break a bone. Like Vibrant Gal here broke her ankle in 3 places, and she went there to get it set. But then they wanted to put all the pins and stuff in, and we knew that nature heals by itself.
Right.
So, despite the advice of 3 orthopedic surgeons and 1 reflexologist, and several of my friends who we showed the x-ray to, who said, "Oh, you can heal that," but they looked at the x-ray and said, "You can't heal that." But she did. She's walking around today just fine, and we didn't do any kind of pins or anything in 3 major breaks in the ankle.
Wow. I think I remember hearing that story. That was about a year ago or 6 months ago or so.
Yeah, we use various bone building formulas, putting weights on it, exercises, things like that.
Yeah.
She went to a physical therapist for a while, realized that we knew more about it than the physical therapist did it. He warned us about looking at things on YouTube, but that's where we got some really good information on YouTube.
Isn't that
After
interesting?
all, Extreme Health Radio is on YouTube, right?
That's right. Yeah, and you do a lot of shows too with our friend Patrick and other people too. So, yeah, isn't that interesting though that they want to warn you to avoid getting things off the internet because I mean, why? I mean, I have my own thoughts about that, but isn't that interesting how they will say stuff like that to you?
You know, a library is dangerous too. It has various types of information. The internet just gives you more leeway and more spectrum of information. And in fact, what I like about the internet, I can go back into textbooks from the 1700s. And believe me, it was a whole different world back then. Bringing us to the subject today is that mind over matter in time. Uh, what we're taught in medical history is very narrow. Back in the day, there were thousands, and I mean thousands of books written on mesmerism and hypnotism where they were curing diseases left and right with that technology.
Wow. So,
No medicine whatsoever.
so this was how long ago?
Uh, let's see, about 100 years ago to 120 years ago, it was at its upswing. There were new books coming on mesmerism all the time. The Rockefellers were trained in mesmerism. That's one of the ways they got their money. William Rockefeller, particularly, studied with a mesmerist who was also a college professor. The college professors knew about it. They were split about it, the anti mesmerists and the mesmerists. Obviously, mesmerism is a threat to organized medicine because you don't need medicine. In
Right.
fact, you can mesmerize a glass of water, which brings us to water, and actually give it to somebody, and they go into a mesmeric state immediately on drinking the water. So that goes beyond what we're taught today as hypnotism is something to make you feel good while you have cancer instead of
Yeah.
get rid of the cancer itself.
I hear you. It's kind of like what they say with cannabis, don't they? They say, "Oh, cannabis is really great for dealing with the side effects of the chemo, and it can help you, deal with the chemo." But people are sort of failing to understand. Hey, if you take the cannabis, you may not need the chemo at all. you know. So.
You know, the dose is important, like LDN. Once I worked for a company called Wallman Optical. It was the most boring job I ever had as a lens polisher. And so they told me within 2 weeks, you're going to have to either improve or we're going to have to let you go. So I said, I'm giving notice. It was so boring anyway. Well, I went home and every day before work, I took 2 puffs of pot and then ran home for lunch and took two puffs, just enough to be functional.
Uh-huh.
Well, by the end of the 2 weeks, they said, "You're now our best employee. We've never seen such an improvement before." So,
Oh,
because I was just like, under pot, dun, 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 I could
yeah.
concentrate perfectly. So it has its value as a therapy. I think it's overvalued for cancer, frankly,
Uh-huh.
but it is a valuable tool and one that should be available to the American public in its natural state. You don't have to make drugs out of it when it has been produced by nature for our enjoyment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting too because I don't watch this show that much, but I saw on the front page of Yahoo News today, apparently Elon Musk was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's catching all kinds of. He's getting flack from every article written about him. His stock has dropped and everything because apparently he had smoked a joint with Joe Rogan on his podcast. And it just, I saw the article and I just thought, do we still think that cannabis and marijuana is, I mean, people still can't believe it's that bad, right? I mean, to make a news article about it, I just think it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's actually a medicine and one that is natural. That's why they oppose it, because you can grow it in your own backyard. Uh, the powers that be do not like us to be able to grow our food in our own backyard, or our
Uh-huh.
medicine for that matter. And in fact, they in the 40s they knew and gave instructions of how to grow antibiotics in your own yard. You didn't need coal tar products to do it, and they had an antibiotic for everything in a plant. Like, you expose maple leaves to sunshine for so long, they repressed that information in the 40s, the late 40s. This is a conspiracy theory, but it's very real if you go back and read the scientific journals. They had meetings to repress this information and make our antibiotics out of coal tar products only.
Wow. When were those meetings?
In the 40s, anyone can find out about it. In fact, recently, I found it on my own because I do so much research. And recently, I was listening to a Ray Peat broadcast, and I heard him say the same thing, that he noticed all these convocations were going on worldwide at that time, when the pharmaceutical companies really got their act together in a bad way, so that they could basically sell their product and not let people know that they could do it themselves. My one argument about nuclear power is that you need experts to hang around for years and years and years. If I could have an atomic reactor in my backyard and do it myself, okay. That's why they repress solar power. If we need solar technology and it's so hard to make it work, how come that almost everybody in South Florida had solar power in their outhouse in the 1910s and 1920s? They didn't have
Wow.
it in get spent. How did they do it? How did they have a nightlight in their outhouse back then? They don't want us to know that information.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely all about keeping the power out of our hands, out of the individual's hands, and it's definitely very strange how that works, and it's a genius plan. I mean, you have to say, right? I mean, it's genius.
There are legitimate doctors out there, don't get me wrong. They mean well, but the theory of medicine is being challenged now. Look at structured water. It means there are no opioid receptors, no sodium pumps, no bilayered membrane, no mitochondria in the same way we understand it. All that's been overturned by the structured water people like Gilbert Ling, etc. And our whole medicine is based on a bunch of theories. When you see those nice charts in the books, you see the this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this,
Yep.
and they don't mention side effects. And the truth is, there are no side effects. There's
Hmm.
only effects.
Hmm.
The entire cell acts as a receptor. That's why white blood cells can swim right into the cell, swim right out. How come they don't need a pump to get in and out? They're large. Well, obviously, something is wrong with the membrane and sodium pump theory. The sodium pump theory, and by the way, and calcium pump and all that,
Uh huh.
was invented because the membrane theory wasn't working. And if you really analyze it, the sodium pump, calcium pump, potassium pump, all those pumps just don't work. They're not there.
So what do you mean they're not actually there, or they're there and they don't work, or they're not working like we've been told they work, or what's your theory on that?
There's no layer. I mean, and it's clear. You look in a microscope, and there is no layer there. But they want us to tell us that there's a double layer of fat cells polarized, and then you need a pump to pump things in and out. Well, what is his name? Gerald Pollack.
Yeah.
You've had him on our phone
Uh-huh.
on your show. Ask him about that. He'll be glad to tell you about the sodium pump theory. He's an expert on it. And Gilbert Ling, Ray Peat, Gerald Pollack, and other of the structural water people will tell you it's not theory. Gilbert Ling has worked this out a long time ago. I doubt if you'll have him as a guest because he's hard to get. He's 98 years old, going to be 99 in
Oh my
December,
gosh, Gilbert
and
Ling.
he's yeah, and I'd read
Wow.
his stuff. It definitely puts the record straight about how they devised that theory, like especially for the estrogen receptor. They want women to believe that it just works on a sexual hormone and doesn't work through the whole cell. And estrogen causes cancer, no doubt about it. Now, a small amount is available for stress. You need it.
Uh-huh.
But when you take it like that, it goes through the whole cell. It does not go to a specific receptor. It is not even a sexual hormone.
Wow. So
It's
you're
a total hormone.
So you're saying, I mean, even natural alternative people say that the membrane of the cell is a dual bilayer lipid, membrane that, acts as a buffer between the actual cell, the contents of the cell itself, and the rest of the red blood cell fluid. So what you're saying is that there's no actual membrane, or there's nothing that. So what keeps contents inside the cell from getting out, and vice versa? Like, is there anything, or is it just like a pressure thing, do you think?
Magnetism and pressure, barometric pressure is involved,
Oh,
like gravity. Look at our atmosphere, what keeps it in. I don't see any double layered membrane up in the stratosphere or the ionosphere. It
right.
works perfectly. And our cells work the same way with magnetism. Now, we have basically what are called 8 chakras, and these are levels of physical interaction. It's called matter acting on matter, energy acting on matter, consciousness acting on matter, energy acting on energy, consciousness acting on energy, consciousness acting on consciousness, which is mind acting on mind, and then beingness acting on consciousness, and then beingness acting on beingness, which is as close to God as you can get.
Jeez. So at that level, you are God then. You're
Yeah,
close.
I'd say so. Or God is you. God became us. We can't become God because He already became us. He beat us to the punch.
It beat us to the punch. That's funny. Yeah. Oh, wow. So this consciousness that you're talking about is everywhere, and it's in the cells itself, right? So the cells themselves are conscious, and I suspect that, like you were talking about, there not being a lipid layer up in the sky that separates the different spheres of the atmosphere. The same extra, or on the macro is the same on the micro, right? So it's replicating itself internally. So if we're conscious, hopefully we all are, but if we are, then our cells are, and so how far down does it go, do you think, that all these parts of ourselves are conscious and wants to live and things like that?
Scientists tell us that oxygen is necessary for a consciousness. It even goes further than that. Oxygen is consciousness, nitrogen is will, hydrogen is power and desire, and carbon dioxide is attachment. So, the secret of information, mind acting on mind, consciousness acting on consciousness, placebo acting on placebo, is carbon dioxide. And when people talk about water having consciousness like emoto,
Uh huh.
he says it's the blueprint. Water is. It isn't. Water is the hydrogen to deliver the power, the oxygen to have the consciousness. The blueprint is carbon dioxide, just like you write with a carbon pencil. It's called a lead pencil, but it's not. It's carbon. So you write on the cell with carbon dioxide. The carbonic acid in our body is a quantum laser. And if you can take a red laser, a highly functioning red laser, if you shoot it up in the sky, it'll go to the moon. You can't see it because it's spread out quite a bit unless you have special detectors. But
Okay.
that's a red laser. The most powerful laser so far invented is a carbon dioxide laser. So right now, if we knew the technique, you and I could talk with our foreheads with our carbon dioxide, the same carbon dioxide that is infused in all water. All rain is acid rain to a degree because it's got carbon dioxide in. It's not good to have the other chemicals in it that make it acid, but the actual acid rain, as soon as you distill it, the carbon dioxide starts infusing it. If I take a straw and blow in the water, I can change it from a pH of 7 to a pH of 5 in 15 seconds. And its
Yeah.
infusion works. Now, but how can you mind read through frequencies? Well, a remote control on your television set, that's infrared. All the other infrared around the room that's coming in from your red light that you have, like at night,
Uh-huh.
or the sunlight coming in through the window, or wherever it's coming from, all kinds of rays. In fact, pheromones are specific signals in infrared, and the infrared works by carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is what allows for ESP, for all kinds of these so-called supernormal powers called the siddhis by the yogis.
Wow.
Siddhis.
So when we're drinking water, then it's much more because you said you had some things to share about water that were sort of groundbreaking, some new research. So since you brought it up again, I want to learn more about that. So when you're drinking water, what's going on? Obviously, depending on the type of water you're drinking, and obviously there's a lot going on with water. But what's this new research that you were just telling me about before we started recording about
It's
water?
actually age-old research that I haven't mentioned before.
Uh huh.
Uh, Water is the blueprint. No, it said it's the blueprint. It is actually the paper the blueprint is written on.
Okay.
You can't take a bath in a blueprint tub, but you can make the blueprint so that you can design things, whether you call them genetics or whatever you call them. It's done that way. But the water is just the paper that writes on. The
Okay.
carbon dioxide is the active ingredient. So the carbon dioxide can work in the water vapor in the air, or it can work in the glass of water itself. Water, like carbon dioxide, can sublimate. It can skip the liquid state and go directly from ice to vapor, just like carbon dioxide, of course. Carbon dioxide doesn't even have a liquid state. It goes directly that way unless it's combined like carbonic acid in the body. And we have it in our blood. So the blood is not only the life, it's the communication system for the entire body.
Wow. So it's carbon dioxide then is sort of the main element here, according to what you're saying, right?
It is, and it's the life force. All life has carbon dioxide. And for instance, you take buteyko breathing and you slow down the body, you get more carbon dioxide. But where? That's the question. There's different levels of the body. And what you do is drive the oxygen deeper into the cell. And now you get consciousness at a very deep level. Whoops, I don't have my chart here. Periodic chart of the elements will show that as you go down, you go into the body. As you go up, you go out of the body and into the stratosphere. We start with the atom at the seventh level of the periodic table and work up to the cell at the fourth level and the interstitial fluid at the fifth level, and the sixth level is going to be the blood and lymph.
Wow. Yeah, we just had a guy on, Patrick McGowan, about. I'm not sure if that's on our podcast yet or if it's just on YouTube, but we just had him on from. I think he was from Ireland. But you're right. He didn't mention that. He talked about getting more oxygen into the body and how breathing through your nose allows nitric oxide to be formed and some of that stuff. But he didn't talk about like what you just said is where is this carbon dioxide or where is this oxygen going in the body, and that's interesting.
Where is, I have this chart here. You
Oh
probably
wow.
can't see it blurry, but I'll be glad to send you a copy. I think we can probably send it by internet. And this
Yeah.
has the 7 levels of the periodic table and the 4 levels that cancer appears on that chart. Because cancer can be in 4 different levels, whether it's a sarcoma or a carcinoma or a lymphoma. It all depends on where it goes. And by knowing this chart, you can target where you're going for any problem. So potassium's going to be in the cell and sodium's going to be out. They are not opposed to each other. They are, one takes the interstitial fluid and one takes the cellular fluid. That's their natural home. And just by
Interesting.
looking at this chart, you'll know where everything is supposed to be. At first, it seems more complicated, but this is the Rosetta Stone of knowing what's in your body and how to treat it.
Wow. So that chart shows basically, it looks like a pretty in-depth chart there. It's pretty complex.
It took me a long time to work that thing out, but it's been available. I think I first made this back in the 80s.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, what is your take on all these people? It seems like more and more people these days are coming down with cancer, like you just mentioned it. And, I have a friend of mine from high school whose 16-year-old son just passed away a couple days ago. I know numerous people my age that have had cancer, and I see it all the time. What are your thoughts about why this is happening so much these days?
Additives, excipients, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, they're all out there that we didn't have before. You probably then have noticed, like I have, my friends are dying before their parents and sometimes before their grandparents. I'm
Yeah.
watching them phase out. Well, back in the day when you ate regular food without all the excipients, additives, etc. And now remember, back then it took a long time to develop an additive. Now, with computers, they can do 100 a day, and they do, unfortunately. So
Wow.
we think of glyphosate as being a problem. It's part of a witch's brew. In fact, the glyphosate is the less harmful form of what Monsanto is doing with their patenting of chemicals.
Wow. What's the more deleterious form that they're working on or doing? What are they
There's a
doing?
whole bunch of names that go by like MON 87 so and so and so on patent numbers. You find them, it's about that long.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hippo monstro sesquipedalianism. In other
Oh
words,
man.
giant words that they use to describe these. So they don't want you to know the number, and that's why they put like a N dash two hydro da 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 da. You've seen those words in chemical
Yeah.
books. There is as long as a school bus.
Wow. That's crazy. So how do we know then that glyphosate isn't the most dangerous chemical that they've put out? Like what studies have been showing, other chemicals are more dangerous?
They're oil soluble. Glyphosate, fortunately, is water soluble. That doesn't make it undangerous. It's very bad. And in fact, now Monsanto's latest thing is the Vistive Gold soybean. Beware that they're actually saying that it reduces fat in the soybean is what its purpose is, and it's going to save the world,
Oh
and it's
my
going to be
gosh.
fed to all fish and fish farms, all restaurants. They've got global approval, China, European unit, and everything, and it's going to save the world by taking the fat out of the soybean. Huh. There's 1% fat in the soybean. That means they're going to reduce it to half. Oh, that's going to make a big difference in our health, isn't it? And they all got glyphosate and two other patents combined in one soybean. And this, they're thinking it's going to make them billions of dollars.
Wow.
So don't believe the California lawyers in San Francisco suing one guy for that much money. The income tax, the IRS is going to get 92 million of that if the appeals fail,
Wow.
and it's all a scam because Monsanto is going full bore, and we haven't even put a any kind of a roadblock. We basically put a grasshopper in the way of their tires.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and $192 million to them is just a drop in the bucket anyway, right? I mean,
It's like us tipping the waiter at the
yeah.
restaurant,
Yeah. It's like so you
and at
say
a fast food restaurant at that.
a GMO fast food restaurant. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and that's where the Vista of Gold is going. They say that our soybean now will not clog your restaurant machinery. Well, the other stuff they were selling was. That's pretty scary. It's been clogging it. But there's other
wow.
worse things than clogging, because unclogging is just as bad as clogging. You can bleed out of your arteries as well as clog them up, you know.
Right, right. We had Stephanie Seneff on the show recently, and she was saying something interesting that I wonder, I'm curious about your take on this. She was sort of surmising, she was just kind of guessing at this, but she said that, 10% of, 10% of gasoline is ethanol, she said, and ethanol, typically all of it is going to be sprayed with glyphosate. And she was wondering, she said she's going to start doing some research into this, but she's wondering if it's possible that all of this exhaust that we're breathing, living next to a freeway or anything like that, it's actually in the air that we're breathing. Do you think there's anything to that?
Not only do I think it, I know it because glyphosate products are in the Vistiv Gold soybean is used in auto products too. It's an all-purpose soybean.
Oh
You
my
can put
gosh.
it in your car, you can put it in your body. It's healthy for your car, it's healthy for your body. And yes, of course it gets in the air now because they're using it actually even for ethanol substitutes. You
Wow.
can see, tune in the Monsanto advertisement for the Vista Gold soybean, and they make it sound like it's really great, but when you really examine it, it's one of the threats to our planet right now. So,
Gosh, that's
yes,
crazy.
cancer is on the acceleration and will go. However, we have the mental way of beating cancer, and that's the weapon that they so far cannot get to. Let me give you an example since we're talking about mind over matter and time.
Mm-hmm.
There was a man, and let me look up his name, Albert A. Mason. I sometimes space out on it. Albert A. Mason encountered as an anesthesiologist, he was working for plastic surgeons. They were working on this boy who had fish scale disease. In fish scale disease, you don't have any oil producing sweat glands, they're simply not there. Well, he mistook the boy who had black crusts all over his body. He stunk so bad if he even moved a wrist like that, he would crack it and it would ooze pus out of it. This boy was so far gone. They tried uh, plastic surgery, didn't work at all. So he suggested, well, let me hypnotize him and see if I can do anything. Well, the surgeon kind of was a smart aleck. He didn't believe in hypnotism, so he thought, yeah, why don't you give it a try? Because the Dr. Mason, he thought it was a rash and didn't understand the true nature. Well, he hypnotized him and he grew him sweat glands. He didn't have any. Now he grew sweat glands. He got 80% cured and he's still
Wow.
living in San Francisco to this day. They don't reveal his name because it's a very private thing. But Dr. Mason then said, wow, I can cure fish scale disease. Well, once he knew that it wasn't a rash and it was something incurable, he couldn't cure it anymore. But when he thought it was curable, the patient thought it was curable, he now overrode the laws of genetics, structure, and morphology to heal. And there's no explanation in our medical science to explain that.
Wow. Yeah, there's something really powerful about belief, isn't there?
Well, have you heard of Arrigo, the surgeon of the rusty knife?
I think you've mentioned him before on our show. That sounds familiar.
I was friends with Henry Belk, who had Belk Department Stores is where he got his money. Well, he became a researcher into the paranormal with Dr. Paharitz and other doctors like that. The guy who wrote the Stalking the Wild Pendulum, for
Right.
instance.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, he went down there and saw Arrigo taking a rusty knife and cutting people's cataracts out with no anesthetic. Now, they tried experiment just touching the cornea, and the person would flinch immediately. He immediately would take them up, took hundreds of people, removed their cataracts, and did all kinds of things. He saved the life of the president of Brazil. Their major rock and roll star saw him, all kinds of people. They put him in prison for practicing medicine without a license, and they left the door open and had a line of people coming in to see him, including the prison guards, all the time he was there. He
Oh my
predicted
gosh.
his death, that he was going to die soon, and the day he predicted, he died. So, how do we explain a man that can do cataract operations with a rusty knife without anesthetics? Just
So
isn't in our medical vocabulary.
so how many people do you think he did that on? How many patients do you think?
I think 10,000 or more.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'll look it up for sure. But he just took on 100 a day or so. He just lined them up and and did his thing. Sometimes he claimed he was channeling a dead German doctor from the First World War. That could never be validated. They never found any such doctor.
Right.
That could have been his belief structure to explain what he was doing to his own mind. But whatever he did, it worked. It healed person after person after person. And documented case, there is a book called Arrigo, the surgeon of the rusty knife. And I personally knew Henry Belk, who went down there and he saw it. He, by the way, used to come to the metaphysical bookstore that I operated, actually I managed, and tell us who was real and who wasn't real, because there are a lot of fakes out there. I won't mention any names, but he
Right.
gave us the lowdown. And when he went to see Arrigo, he said that guy's the real deal. No one can
Wow.
explain what he's doing. And Dr. Proharich, I just found out, actually died at the Sufi camp, the R.J. Reynolds property. Reynolds was a paranormal researcher and a Sufi and a Gurdjieff uh, person.
Wow.
And at his place called Devotion, you can look it up on the internet. That's where we did our Sufi camp in 1975, I believe it was.
Wow, that's amazing. Hang tight, Adam Bergstrom. We're just going to do a quick little spot here. Reminds me kind of John of God, which is a documentary I saw a while back. But I wanted to tell you guys really quickly about this Barf World dog food. I don't know if you guys have tried this. So many people have tried it on our website. If you have a dog, consider giving them some of this Barf World raw dog food. I think you're really going to like it. I think your dog's going to love it, and our dogs absolutely love this stuff. It's available in our store. Give it a try. There's something really great about giving your dog raw dog food. There's something really great about the combination between the muscle meat, they have the organ meat, and then they have the bone, and it's all mixed up together. So it creates a really great acid-alkaline balance in your dog's body. And Charlie and Coco, they just love this stuff. So I think you guys really, really, really like this. And then quickly, I wanted to tell you about the Rapid Release Technology Pro 2. This device is, oh my gosh, I can't tell you. I have a story. Maybe I'll share it later on, but I have a story to share about this rapid release and how it affected my back. I had a debilitating back pain a couple years ago. I injured my back at the gym, actually, doing bent over rows with too much weight and not correct form. And my back was getting worse and worse by the day. I couldn't even get out of bed. At one point, Kate told me, maybe you should just call the emergency and, the ambulance and have them come take you. And I said, I couldn't lay down to get them to take me out on a gurney. I couldn't move at all. I had zero range of motion. And then a lady came by and used this rapid release technology on me. And oh my gosh, what a difference it made. It prompted the healing process. And if you guys are interested in it, it's in our store. You can watch a cool little video from Terry Bradshaw, the former NFL guy. There's a video of him there talking all about it. And so if you have back issues, it's kind of nice to have something like this, just at home, as part of your, home healing sort of, protocol and things to have at home, and, making your home like a healing space. We are with Mr. Atom Bergstrom, and you can see his website there, SunSyncNutrition.com, and he's got a membership there. He's got a food list, exercise list, color therapy, and if you guys are watching on the YouTube, you can see all about it here. He's got some really, really cool things that I think you should really check out. And there's tons of people that just swear by his timing of when you eat certain foods. And we've done many, many shows with him, and he goes in detail about the time of when we eat and how that affects our cells and all that good stuff. So let me bring Adam back on the show here. And Adam, as you were talking about that man, it kind of reminded me of the documentary I watched with John of God, and he was kind of doing the same thing with people with cataracts and blindness, and it's pretty incredible.
I'd like to see him do the cataract operations to see if he compares with Rigo. I don't think he's at that level.
Really?
But there's different levels. Well, ask him. I didn't see him do a cataract operation on the Oprah show. in front of medical experts, Arrigo simply took a knife, whatever was handy, a pen knife, whatever, not a butter knife. That was
Wow.
too, it had to be sharp.
Yeah,
And
it had
just
to be sharp.
simply, you can see, I think there's a couple of videos of him doing that on the internet. But I've
Wow.
never seen John of God except whole people and things like that. And
Uh-huh.
that will work because a person's consciousness can do it. We all have this within us and it's kind of disguised. Now, I had a girlfriend one time, which I called the light bulb crusher, because one time we got in an argument and she was holding a light bulb in her hand. So I was worried, oh my God, she's may crush that and hurt herself and get cut on it. So she looked at me and she looked at the bulb and she looked at me and she realized what I was thinking. So she went like this with the light bulb and went, and then
Oh.
she went like that and she went like this,
Oh.
ground it into her hand and went like that and said, God protects me, blankety blank.
No
And she
way.
didn't have a single scratch. So every time to this day that I cut myself on a piece of glass, it angers me
Oh my gosh.
because I remember her doing that. And I went to my Swami friend, Donald Lay, and said,
Uh-huh.
explained that to him. He said, oh, that's easy. And I said, yeah, for you it's easy, but I am not able to do it yet. And I'm still not able to crush a light bulb in my hand. I wouldn't even try.
Oh my god. So
And
if
she,
if you were going to do the Tony Robbins sort of firewalking thing, I mean, part of that too is your own belief, right? Like what you were saying before is having a complete belief in what you're doing, and I mean, that plays a huge role in all that stuff.
definitely. Now, a lot of that is a trick. I know someone who's done it 50 times, and
Hmm.
my friends there in Austin, the whole group has done it. So part of it's a trick, but you can actually stand in the fire longer if you are an experienced yogi rather than just
Uh-huh.
walking over it, because the sweat in the feet will protect you, much like if I hold a hot pan, but I've held water beforehand and
Okay.
hold it, that I don't get it. So a lot of that is explanation. But yes, belief makes a difference because so many people, like my friend Judy Utley, who I did an alignment on her neck, and her right eyelid drooped on her, and I do such a gentle alignment that I had no explanation. So she went to a doctor for that. And the doctor said, after examining her and doing the test, how did you even walk in this office? You have cancer of the spine, cancer of the lungs, cancer of the breast. You're riddled with cancer. Go get your affairs in order. You shouldn't even be able to walk.
Wow.
Well, she took that at first and was all depressed. I met her right after the meeting. And then she decided, I'm going to fight it. So she went down to San Antonio. These two ladies burned a big hole in her back, that big, with what's called, what do they call it? The black zinc type therapy
Oh,
that they use there.
the black salve, yeah.
The black salve, that's the
Yeah.
one. And anyway, she got healed. The cancer was completely gone, out of the spine, out of the breast, out of the lungs. They went. If she continued to chain smoke, by the way. So they examined her
Wow.
year after year after year, looking for cancer because they couldn't explain it. The doctor who had diagnosed her got lung cancer. She tried to tell him to go get an alternate therapy. He wouldn't. He died a year later. She went on and finally died of her own big fat mouth when she said, I just want to live till I find the love of my life. She found the love of her life and she died right after, and then he died right after, and they're both happily ever after,
Oh my
someplace
gosh.
in the cosmos.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. I just want to
And by the
invite.
way,
Oh no,
oh,
no,
I
go
was
ahead.
just
Yeah, yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say that the great acupuncturist, his name is skipping my consciousness now, from Esalen. He went and examined those two ladies who were doing that treatment, and he couldn't find a single case of a success story. So I'm assuming that Judy Utley, who was also a student of Adonal Lay, as I was,
Uh-huh.
had the consciousness that brought her above that, and it wasn't really the black salve, but I really don't know. So that's where it stands.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, if it's probably I wouldn't imagine it would be ideal for someone to take a natural treatment and not believe it versus someone who takes a chemical like a chemotherapy and they believe wholeheartedly. Like, that's two kind of opposite opposing things, and the natural world, in the physical world, you would think that the natural product would be, or the natural approach, depending on what you do, would be, more effective and not as damaging. But I guess you see cases both ways of that, don't you?
Yeah, chemotherapy works on a totally different mechanism than the doctors say. It works on the Coley toxin idea. Dr. Coley, back in the day, he found a patient who got a serious life-threatening disease, and meanwhile he was riddled with cancer. They expected him to die about a week. Well, the riddling or the life-threatening disease cured him of cancer. He left the hospital perfectly healthy. Coley became fascinated with this, tracked the man down. 8 years later, he was cancer-free. So then he developed the toxin technique. And what chemotherapy really does, it shocks your body. So it brings it to the fact of turning on your immune system. You could use bee stings. You could use an automobile accident. You could use your friend hit you over the head with a mallet. There's a whole bunch of ways to do the same thing. And that's what really gets people well with chemotherapy.
So, but isn't the chemotherapy destroying the white blood cells and the bone marrow and all this, immune factors in the body? Isn't it destroying all of that? And
It turns it on because we have the white blood cells you can transfer with your eyes. Long ago, I asked the doctor, how come when I look up in the sky and I see all these white little things going, you may have done it yourself. They're easy to see. And in fact, Wilhelm Reich called it orgone energy that you were seeing.
Yep.
Well, when I studied with the Donald Lay, he said it was white blood cells. So later, I actually consulted ophthalmologists, and one of them said, "Oh, so you see little white things out there," huh? And everybody laughed. But finally, I found a guy in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, a medical doctor, and he said they're white blood cells. That's what you're seeing, and they can be broadcast. White blood cells, like Rupert Sheldrake has proved. You look at the back of someone's head, and eventually they start to get uncomfortable and turn around. This is the type of energy that is used. For instance, right now, here's how we energize our entire audience. I just zippered up, not down, the central meridian in the body. Now, the Highway Patrol regularly uses the reverse of that technique to weaken people before they arrest them, because they can take the strength out of most people who don't know how to center themselves. And I'm going to be making, Vibrant Gal and I are going to be making videos on these various techniques, how to use them in the hand, in the wrist, in the cuckoo versus the uncuckoo mechanism, the hand holding mechanisms, and all of these body languages can give you actually super strength. A lot of the strength tricks that people use are tricks. They need to be physically fit, obviously, but if you really read into the secrets of it, a one-armed lift is actually easier to do than a two-armed lift. So a correct strength test will always, when they bring the person on stage, put both hands on that bar, buddy.
Yeah. Do you think there's some validity to muscle testing with foods?
I have a challenge for that. I think there is, but there's not too many people that are experienced. So what I say is bring the person that's going to do the muscle testing one pill, and it's got to be, what do you call it, opaque, so you can't see what's in it. One has vitamin C, it's good for you. One has B12, it's good for you. The other has cyanide. Tell them, here's 3 of them, test which is good for you, and then take it. And do this about 3 times to make sure your diagnosis is going to be 100% accurate. Maybe even take it 10 times to make sure. And then I'll believe your muscle testing. But yes, it can be done, but you really have to know what you're doing, because most of the people out there cannot pass that test.
Now, why is that? Are we so sort of disconnected from ourselves that we don't know what part of us is telling the truth?
We don't know that our adrenal glands are in the skin. We think they're in little tri-cornered hats above our kidneys. But General Electric back in the 1910s and 1920s, they knew that the adrenal gland is in the skin, because red light works on your sympathetic nervous system. It has nothing to do with your parasympathetic nervous system. Red light and the sympathetic nervous system works out of the heart energy. Your parasympathetic nervous system, all brain and all buttocks.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I
So the
just
adrenal.
no, no, go
No, go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. I was done.
No, no, yeah, no, it's interesting. So you say the adrenals are sort of it's like a hologram. They're all around the body. They're all in different parts of the body. Is that what you're saying?
Only in the skin, only in the second layer of the skin where they convert cholesterol. They convert ultraviolet light into building cholesterol, vitamin D, and not just one vitamin D. When you take a pill, you're taking what used to be called toxicol, but they
Uh-huh.
changed the name because it didn't market very well. But you can go and take your food and put it out in the sunlight for 10 minutes, sometimes even 2 minutes, like with mushrooms, and give it so much vitamin D, you'll have plenty.
Well, that's what I was wondering too, because I've been doing that a lot. Is putting the food that I eat into the sun or eating it in the sun. And I'm wondering, like, what do you think is happening when you do that, or even do you think there's anything that happens as a result of the sun hitting? Like, if you put your shirt on and you just sort of lay it out over a chair, the back of a chair in the sun for a couple minutes, and then you wear it, and there's obviously heat transference that's going on, and you can feel it because the shirt's hot. But is there more stuff going on, do you think, by putting your food or your clothes in the sun?
Lots. It's just not the visible light. Remember, visible light is a little bitty spectrum between all the cosmic energy and all the infrared energy. Infrared is invisible, right? You can feel it. You
Mm-hmm.
go up to a red 250 light chicken brooder light and you put your hands on it, that's infrared. But we get the red energy 20 feet away. Our light is over here. And we're getting the red energy. And actually, it's the orange energy, as Dinshaw Gadiali pointed out, not the red energy at all. That's the most healing factor of it, which is why the red chicken light has orange through red orange, through red, and through deep red and infrared too.
Yeah,
Some
you've
people can see infrared, by the way.
really.
Oh yeah, they can see up to. Normally, you see the chart from what to 700.
Uh huh.
Some people can see up to 850.
What do they? What color do they see that as, or how do they know that they're seeing from 700 to 850?
They see infrared. Like, have you ever heard of bee white or bee purple? Actually, the bee's vision starts at orange. They don't see red, but they can see ultraviolet. So they go the other way.
Oh
So when
wow.
you have color mixing from orange to ultraviolet, a bee sees completely different colors. They see white as turquoise, and everything gets mixed up. So that's where people get mixed up with vision. Not everybody has 3-point vision. In fact, Gerder found out that you can have vision with only two colors. He looked through the prism. Uh, Newton looked at the prism. There's a difference.
Yeah, you've mentioned him before. What is his name? Gerda?
Gerder, yeah,
Girder.
he was a German philosopher. He actually wrote a book, a novel about suicide, and started a wave of suicides across Europe. So there's the power of belief again. We have to be careful how we're programmed into
Yeah.
believing certain things. Right now, people believe about the economic situation, if it's bad or good, and their life suddenly becomes a what do you call it? It makes the movie happen.
Uh
And
huh.
actually, we can do anything we want to. I hung out with a Swami who could just make things materialize as he wanted it. And I've actually had a materialization myself. I was warned not to abuse this, but one time I wanted to travel with Adano back to Texas, but I would miss being at the motor vehicle department Monday, and then I would have to come back and take the regular driver's test instead of just take the written test. So he looked at me and said, Sri Yukteswar said that you can change a man's mind can change the course of the stars, but it's easier to change men's mind. So I said, what's he mean by that? So I went
Yeah.
home and looked in my mailbox, and it said, sign here and your driver's, and that you don't need glasses and you have a driver's license. Wow, they just started this program in California now. Did he time travel? How the heck? So I just signed it and put it in the mail and went back to Texas with nitty gritty and had my driver's license waiting for me to get back. But now let me get to the point of my story. I was worried that my eyesight would not be able to pass the test. And by the way, I threw away I still use glasses for really small print, but
Uh-huh.
I don't need them anymore since I've been eating a certain way. And it took me about 16 years or more to get my eyesight back where I
Wow.
didn't need the glasses anymore. But anyway, I'm at this ranch and I'm worried that I can't pass those little squares and the tests they give you because I
Uh-huh.
do not like to wear glasses when I drive. So I thought, Nitty Gritty said that you can change the course of the stars. Well, what if I change the date on my driver's license? So I sat down for 20 minutes and stared and stared and stared. Nothing happened. So I thought, this is a goofy idea. So I would try from time to time, and finally came the day. I looked at it. Nope, it's the date to go take my test, so I have to go. I got
Right.
there. I looked at it again. It's the date to take my test. One last fleeting hope that maybe it would change. So then I took the eye test, which I was afraid to take, and I didn't do very well. But the person said, forget it, you're passed. And so I passed. Then she handed me back the license and said, do you realize you were here a year early? I said, what? I looked at it, and now the date was a year in advance.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
then she said, you have an address change to do. Why don't I hold the paper for you? You come back in a week, and then you have your new driver's license a year in advance, because in Texas you can get it 364 days in advance,
Oh
and you
wow.
have an address change. So that's how I got my Texas driver's license and changed the date. And
Wow.
believe me, I was in shock after I did it. I didn't really think, there was a part of me said, this can't really happen. It did.
It's funny that that's a crazy story, but it's interesting. I can't remember anymore if the stuff that Kate and I talk about is on the show or not. But we were talking recently about how people love to live in a world that's safely sort of defined, and everything is sort of structured and ordered, and there's margins, and there's black and there's white, and people love to live like that. And I was saying, like, I love to live in the mystery, because when you live in the mystery, it's like you're in that 0 point where anything is possible, right? So, it's possible that anything can happen. And I think that if you are ultimately want to achieve optimum health, you have to live in that state, because you have to believe that it's possible for you to heal, or it's possible for you to achieve whatever fitness goal or longevity goal or whatever your goal is. You have to believe that it's possible. And when you live in that state of flux where everything is possible, then opportunities start showing up and things start happening. I don't know. It's life to me would be boring if I just had everything figured out and everything made sense, and I'd go to work, come home, and watch TV and go to bed. Like, I don't want any kind of life like that.
For whatever reason, our subconscious gives us every disease in the book from A to Z. Swami Nitty Gritty used to call it ATG, attention getting syndrome. He said, even worse than AIDS, even God has it.
So it's called attention getting syndrome. Is it what he
Attention
called
getting
it?
syndrome. In other words, you get attention by having a disease. So, and it's
Ah.
hard to believe that you could give yourself AIDS or anything like that, or cancer or whatever, but it actually is part of the ongoing drama. We look at movies, we like to have a villain. What movie doesn't have a villain, whether it's a disease or a person or an evil girlfriend or whatever? So when I first asked Adano, what is AIDS? He says, well, what does it stand for? I said, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. He
Mm-hmm.
said, what does acquired mean? I said, to get. He said, it does not. Look it up in the dictionary. So I did. Acquired means to acquire, like an acquisitions department. You buy it. So that was
Oh.
his point. The same with disease. We all get it. And believe me, I get stuck with it too. To have a disease, you have to believe in it. Some countries where they don't have that disease, they don't believe in it and they don't get it. Japan actually has a disease called the incredible member shrinking syndrome. I use the polite word. And there's a whole bunch of people believe that their member is shrinking.
Right,
and,
right.
and there's various other diseases like that. We, because we're in this narrow spectrum of culture, believe what culture is there. If you've ever studied anything by Al Drucker, you can find him on the internet, how he got rid of his cancer, and how Sai Baba gave him the cancer so he could take it away from a famous, what was he called? Like Margaret Mead, anthropologist,
Oh,
whatever.
right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he cured him of his cancer and gave it to him, and then he cured it after that, and all because of Sai Baba. When he finally went to back to India, which is a story in itself, I met Al Drucker and heard this story personally. Uh, he went to the very back row, and Sai Baba saw him and said, "Come up here." And he said, "Do you think I would forget about you even for 1 second? Not cancer, cancel."
So how did he give him cancer? How did that happen?
You know, I wish I knew the technology, except I wouldn't be giving people cancer. I'd be trying to take it away.
Yeah.
Even though the Swami I studied was said, to know how to heal, you have to know how to kill. And remember, acupuncturists must be careful. All of those are kill reflexes. Every acupuncturist, you touch them wrong and hard enough, and they kill people. They're called dim suck or the death touch technique. And what do they use? The acupuncture techniques. Yet Americans, acupuncturists who don't have that training, just merrily go around touching all these points and don't realize that they could have consequences, unintended consequences, side effects. And again, there are no side effects,
Hmm. Are you
only
familiar?
effects.
Only effects, yeah, with everything. Are you familiar
Fortunately,
with?
or
Oh no,
go
so I was
ahead.
going to ask you. Are you familiar with esoteric acupuncture? Have you heard about that?
I've heard of it. There's various forms
Yeah.
from Mark Seam to Janet Travell to everything.
Uh huh.
The real truth is that, and a lot of acupuncturists don't like this, points move. They move by whether you're in life flow or magnetic flow. And
Oh.
when they move, and an experienced acupuncturist will notice this. Dr. Jonna Travell, who was Kennedy's doctor, noticed that. Mark Seam noticed it. Various other acupuncturists who, what's his name? His name's not coming to me. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of acupuncturists who have different takes on it. But because TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine, is meant to be marketed to doctors, this point stays here and it doesn't move here. It cannot move from that point. And so
Right.
they say, so they put the anatomical name about that long, right? Big word, so that
Yeah.
the doctors like it. Oh, that's a big word. That must be valid. But instead, if you look at the original charts, they're just lines on a body, and they move. And the original inventors of acupuncture supposedly happened when a soldier got shot with an arrow and it cured his gallbladder disease. So they wondered, how the
Oh.
heck could that happen? Again, it's a counter shock treatment,
Uh huh. Yeah, it's
hormetic
interesting.
effect. Mm.
Yeah, hormetic effect. That's interesting because it's interesting this whole idea of the meridians and how the body is ultimately connected, and there's pathways that go to and from different organs and systems and things that seemingly seem unrelated, like a tooth. Like we had Dr. Bob Dowling on the show, and he was on, gosh, years ago, and he's got a clinic in, I think, in Ecuador right now, and he was healing or helping this lady heal from cancer, and she had a tooth that was, I think it was a root canal or maybe it was a cavitation, but he was showing on his x-rays the white line that was going from her tooth to the tumor that was in her breast. And, that's like something that Western medical doctors would never put a correlation or even a connection between, a tooth and a breast cancer. So, I mean, our body is intricately connected, isn't it?
Not only that, with our parents, Dr. Massey has probably told you about recall healing, and
Uh-huh.
we are connected to three ancestors backwards and three ancestors forward.
Uh-huh.
So we are also working on things in the future. For instance, I know I've told you the story of my friends who brought their screaming child to Adonal Lay's clinic because he couldn't stop screaming. They were taking him to the hospital, and they decided, let's see if Adano can do anything. We're passing by his clinic anyway. So they
Uh-huh.
came in with the screaming child. They took his shoes off because Adano at that point would often start with the feet. He touched the feet, and the child windmilled with his feet, kicking Adano. Adano looked annoyed. He turned around to the parents, walked up to them, grabbed their left shoulders, both of them, rubbed it, and within 30 seconds, the child was completely asleep. He picked the child up, adjusted his neck. A bunch of vertebrae went one way. He did it the other way. And now the boy woke up. He was like he's in a trance looking at the wall. And then Adana went to the father and said, since it's the left shoulder, what did you do to upset him this morning? Well, I promised I'd take him to the store, and I didn't. Well, next time, if you simply touch the child when you say that, you won't cause a trauma and you won't have this problem. And
So
off they went. And my world changed at that time when I saw, and I've done it since then. I have actually put a child, what do you call it? A child with frontierism is what not nitty gritty would call it.
what's
They'll be
that mean?
running around throwing things down, and I'll have the parent's foot, the mother, in most cases, and I say, "You want me to put your child to sleep?" She said, "You can do that." I said, but first, because he comes out of your womb, he's going to try to do a belly flop on your belly. So be prepared. So I start the technique. And indeed, the child makes multiple attempts to get on the belly. And suddenly, the child just rolls up in the corner and goes to sleep within minutes.
So in the case,
Anybody can do it. It's just not me. I don't have any special powers. I'm just an ordinary guy.
just a regular. So in the case of O'Donnell, when he put his hand on the woman's shoulder, left shoulder, why did he do that if he didn't say anything to her?
To work on both traumas because they're both still involved and connected because the sperm and the ovum became one. See,
Okay.
we are a sperm and an ovum. This is my ovum and
Uh-huh.
this is my sperm. See that spine, Kundalini, the little wiggle that goes on?
Uh-huh.
When you have that wiggle of the sperm, that's all Kundalini is. And Kundalini is the lower energy. The chakras are actually in the skin and in the skull, which is the ovum. In mythology, we say the sun is masculine. In older religions and philosophies and spirituality, it's obviously the ovum. The ovum is so much bigger than the sperm. So the sperms are the moons and the comets that we have, and the ovum is the female. So this is the female part, not the male part. And this is the male part of us, the sperm. So the ovum says, "Come here, big boy." The sperm does all the work, and this part just gives orders, and it's the ovum. So the woman in us, the feminine part, the chakras start here and go all the way back to the medulla oblongata, the mouth of God, conveniently right behind your mouth, the mouth of man.
Yeah, the medulla oblongata, that's a special spot, isn't it?
Man does not eat by bread alone. It's in the Bible.
Uh-huh.
But people don't interpret it correctly often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think, speaking of the Bible, what do you think that manna was that they ate?
I think it was actually energy. They've tried to put all kinds of food, Terence McKenna, all of that. I think it was just
Yeah.
energy that they were eating. And I don't have any real handle on it. It's beyond my pay grade, but I am investigating it. And maybe one day in some esoteric book, I will dig it out and I will let you know.
I know, I know, I know. Yeah, it's all so fascinating how everything is so connected, isn't it? With our belief systems and our subconscious mind, our past three generations that you were saying Dr. Massey talks about, as well as the three generations into the future. It kind of makes you think that like this whole physical plane that we live on is so far down the line when it comes to how to make corrective change in the body, because it's the first place you start, because you think, oh, I'm having a pain in my back, or I'm pain this that this place, but really the change happens in some other unknown, unseen dimension that we're all seemingly disconnected from, right?
Sounding board technique. Adonale first showed me how to do it, and I worked on a friend of mine with applied kinesiology from Houston to Sepulveda, California. How many thousands of miles is that away? And it works. But when I went back and told Adano how successfully it worked, he said, you know, I prefer not to be a circus performer. I prefer touch. It's more intimate and more personal. I could be a circus performer, but it just shows you got a big ego.
Mm-hmm.
But that energy exists, and it's been used from time to time. I've seen a good friend of mine was in trouble, and immediately on the moment of trouble, his mother called him and said, "What's wrong? What's going on there?"
Wow.
And we're in touch with people. We have this sense of like this is where it ends. It
Uh-huh.
doesn't. That is a conception of the mind, which is convenient for our civilization. But the truth is, we don't astral project. We're already there.
Mm-hmm.
When you inhale, you're in your body. When you exhale, you're any place you want to be in the entire universe. Although most people are so brainwashed by it, Master Chen told me that his most advanced student, he can only get to go 15 feet out of his body. His most advanced American student. He has no such problem with his Chinese Wudang Mountain students.
Right, right, right. What is so interesting too, because you hear stories like, J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, and her story about how she wrote that book, and this story is so fascinating because she was traveling through the countryside on a train somewhere in Europe, I think, going back home after a vacation or something, and she's just sitting there, and I don't know if she was someone who wanted to write a book, or if she was kind of putting that out there, or if she was just an average person, but just had this spark of inspiration. But she was sitting there looking out the window, and all of a sudden, she has this sense of, okay, there's a young boy who's a wizard, who's a promising sort of wizard, and he gets taken off and has to go to some school, and then it was like the whole story downloaded to her of the Harry Potter sort of franchise. Like, what is that? Like, this is all this kind of stuff we're talking about, right? I mean, it's all connected.
Inspiration is the word. We
Mm-hmm.
inspire the information from oxygen and carbon dioxide, which is all through the universe. Look at the Urantia book. That whole thing was written on a typewriter without the person even being there. Look at Dr. Erickson, the famous hypnotist. He was so confident of his subconscious abilities that he was told that when he was a teenager, that he could write articles for the local newspaper. So he hypnotized himself to get up in the middle of the night and not know what he had written. So he would write his articles. His roommate would come in and realize, whoa, that guy's not even here, so I'll just leave him alone. He'd go to bed. He'd find this paper. He wouldn't even read it. He'd fold it up, put it under the newspaper, the door, like the editor had told him. And his roommate finally, a few weeks later, says, hey, your article was published. So Dr. Erickson, Milton Erickson, read it for the first time. So he would do that regularly. And he said it's nonsense that there are people who cannot be hypnotized. It's just the hypnotist is not good enough to hypnotize anybody. Gurdjieff could do it with a piano chord, and it can be done in multiple ways.
So if someone were to look for a hypnotist, are there specific, qualities or attributes they should look at if they want to find a hypnotist in their area that you think is qualified?
The qualified person is right here. If you
Ah.
go to a hypnotist, Swami Nitty said it was more personal than sex. You would join for that person. Well, when I read Milton Erickson, who is a very standard hypnotist, he told me that once you hypnotize a person, the hypnotist and the hypnotized are joined for life. There's no way to sever the connection. So you
Really?
must be careful who you let hypnotize when you hear that kind of thing. Now, I foolishly went to a medical doctor one time and said, I would like to be hypnotized. I want to go back and experience my past life like Bridie Murphy and Edgar Cayce. And he
Uh-huh.
said, I don't do that. I do the Freudian stuff. I said, well, okay, I'll settle for that. Well, I went in to get hypnotized, and my transcendental meditation mantra came and blocked it. But I don't really know what happened, but I guess I'm still joined with that guy after all this time. I only went to one session, then I wised up before that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, my mom did a hypnotism session in the 1980s. I think it was around 87 or so when she went, and I was just a kid. But I remember her going because she was trying multiple times to kick the habit of smoking, and so she had smoked all her life. And she had tried multiple different things, and nothing was working. She tried the gum and all this kind of stuff, the patch. But she went to a hypnotist at the suggestion of one of her friends, and she didn't believe it. She didn't want to go to him, but she went, and the hypnotist said that after you leave, you will have no more cravings for cigarettes ever. And sure enough, she hasn't touched a cigarette for 35 years. It's crazy.
And by the way, I don't even believe, even though we have that personal connection with the hypnotist, I
Hmm.
believe anything can cause anything and anything can cure anything. So I believe
Hmm.
even that can be severed. So
Hmm.
we have the power if we go here. We are the best hypnotists because, even if you listen to a self-help tape, if you learn a language from anybody, you get their traumas because their speech reveals their exact trauma. That's what I
Mm.
do with body dowsing by simply doing the feet because it's the easiest place to access. I can hold individual fingers and hands and wrists and do the same thing. It's very easy for anybody. It's not complicated at all.
Hmm.
And all of that unconscious is in our body and readable just like a book, but it's there, and once you can read it, you can erase it. We have the eraser. The reading occurs on the second chakra, the erasing occurs on the third chakra, and the rewriting occurs on the fourth chakra.
Interesting. So the whole idea and purpose of all this stuff is to get to the point where we are looking within ourselves, right, for the healing that our body needs, and to stop sort of outsourcing our health to other people or stop outsourcing our life to other people. It's ultimately sort of just shutting all of that out, right, and just saying, I'm no longer going to take all this input from all these different people, and going within and cultivating that power, right? Isn't that where kind of what you're talking about?
Yogananda told Adonal Lay when he wrote him, he wanted 100 books on God. And Yogananda wrote, "What are all the books in the world compared to 15 minutes in the silence of the soil? Not soul, but soil, the 144 elements." And so he meditated for 14 years and he finally got him. And a guru flew to the United States and came to the airport. And Adonolay and some of his friends showed up at the airport to meet him. And the guru looked at Adano and said, "Are you getting all the books?" "Yes, master, I am." 15 minutes go by and they're meditating. "Are you getting all the books?" "Yes, master, I am." And a third time. Adano did everything in threes. He even had three belly buttons. So at that point, he got all the books. So it took him 14 years to download them.
Wow. That's
And now,
amazing.
after that, he didn't have to read anything. In fact, the only thing he read, just for the humor of it, was the National Enquirer. And you can hear the
uh,
physics that I'm giving you and the charts behind me up here. All
yeah.
of those are coming from his mind, not from someone else's. Now, you go to other people. Obviously, I'm in the library. That's other people I'm studying.
Uh-huh.
And I do it for the joy of it. Uh, our consciousness is here, but the fun is all over the place, and down on on the spermal chakras, those
Hmm.
are really fun. Wiggle that little tail.
Yeah, I think one of the issues though is, a lot of the people that listen to our show, and I'm sure that listen to a lot of different podcasts or radio shows or things out there, is that they hear one person saying one thing, or they hear someone saying the complete opposite, and there's people saying all kinds of different things rather than going within themselves and seeing, is this something that's going to be beneficial for me? So this all happens in the natural side, but then you also have the sort of more allopathic medical side too, where everyone is saying conflicting things and arguing, and so you have two camps that are arguing within themselves, and then these two camps themselves are arguing, and people are just so confused. But I think it's because that our culture and our society has done such a great job of disconnecting, trying to keep us either busy or disconnecting ourselves from our deeper selves. Don't you think?
I like to look for the commonalities. They say that the heart looks for commonalities and the mind looks for differences. And
Oh.
Maya basically is the illusion of difference. It's not just illusion, it's the illusion of difference. And I'm quoting Satya Sai Baba on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's true, it's within us. Now, anything can cause anything, anything can cure anything. So you get people like Mr. Eatsall, who ate a Cessna. It took him 2 years to do it. He digested the Cessna. And you have the guy on Game of Thrones named Mountain in the
Oh,
series.
I've seen
He
that.
eats 7 chickens at a time. And you
I've
have the French guy who used to eat a quarter of a cow per day. Got kicked out of home by his parents. They couldn't afford him, and he went
man.
on the show eating things, including live animals. He would put in his mouth and eat them. And
Wow.
of course, and people think that's terrible. He even ate a child one time because he was starving to death all the time. Well, some people can get by, like, look at the Turban Tornado. He's basically pretty much a vegetarian all his life, eats half the amount that you're supposed to get protein. He's 107 years old, still has a closet full of suits, takes out the ladies, and at 101, he was still running 26-mile marathons. And to this day,
Wow.
I think he's still doing 7 miles a day at 107. Then look at Dick Van Dyke. He's 93, 25 years as an alcoholic, and he's still ticking, still dancing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So there's a
crazy.
lot of room.
Yeah, there was a guy in our chat room a while back who was saying the same thing. He was saying that I forget what he said, but he said he smokes and drinks and has been doing so since he's 15, and he just has incredible health. And it kind of reminds me of George Burns, the same kind of thing where he's the comedian and but so closely and tightly aligned to his purpose and to his mission and enjoying life and telling jokes and being a comedian. And so obviously, like, there's more than going on than what we know about when it comes to just, smoking is bad or drinking is bad. But it's interesting. This thing we call life is so complex, isn't it?
Donald Lay told me that you can do all of these things, but play by the rules. So I live a very clean lifestyle. We get 95% of our food from the farmers market here in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And smoking, there are statistics. However, Donald Lay used to say the cosmic initiate lives the life of the exception to the rule. But you better be sure that you can live that rule before you start smoking and taking meth and whatever else you're going to do in your lifestyle. Because the willpower, didn't you name one of your children Will?
We did. Yeah. Will.
That's a good name. Yeah, generate willpower. You've given them an affirmation
Uh-huh.
right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. The middle name of Ben is Truth, Benjamin Truth, and William Justice is what we did.
Whoa, I love it.
Yeah.
My Swedish name, Atom Bergstrom from the old country, actually means justice, justa,
Oh, wow.
Gosta. And Ingvar, have no idea what that means.
Wow. Wow. Well, what a trip. So ATOM is something that you cultivated later in life, or you decided to go by that?
I'm working on it because Donald Lay would say, how can an atom get tired? You say, I feel sick. How can an atom get sick? So I
Ah.
figured that's as good a name as any. And a friend of mine said, he asked a friend of mine, can you walk through that wall, sir? And my friend said, I think I can. He said, if you think you can, you're going to bump your nose. But if you know you can, you'll walk right through that wall.
Just like in Harry Potter, that scene in Harry Potter was like that. Yeah.
It's knowing. My Sufi teacher, Adnan Sarhan, claims that his master could whirl through a wall. And I
Wow.
saw a picture of his teacher with multiple swords stuck through his body. They do that all the time in the Middle East and in Indonesia too.
Yeah, I remember that book, Autobiography of a Yogi. Have you read that one? Yeah,
Many times, several
yeah,
times.
yeah. They talk about all these kind of things that happen, and it's pretty common, at least, in that kind of world and in that area of the world as well.
When I read it in 1955, I believed the whole thing, and then I started to get cynical. I think he might be exaggerating.
Yeah.
Then I met an initiate of his, Swami Nitty Gritty, and then he started demonstrating some of those things. So now I have changed my whole opinion because he could do the things that were being told. And indeed, I've been lucky enough to do a few of them myself.
Wow. Wow. Like what?
Well, I think I've told you my story of I needed, a friend of mine was going to lend me some money because he thought it would be a good idea for me to get a massage license in Texas.
Oh, okay.
And so he said, I'll lend you the money. I said, if affirmations really work, I need $2,500. It's $2,100 to get into the school, $300 to get a bank account without having to pay any money on it,
Uh-huh.
and $100 left over. So my sessions are $75 at the time. And then if someone writes me a bum check, I won't have to pay for it.
Okay.
And my friend, who is an expert at affirmations, he's got a worldwide organization simply by writing with a pencil on a Big Chief tablet every day.
Wow.
But anyway, he was a bit miffed even that. So I went over to the other house that he owned in Austin, Texas, and walked in, and there was an envelope on my bed that my roommates had got in the mail. I opened it up, and it was a check for $2,500. So I called up my friend and said, "Guess what? I'm going to massage school." And indeed, I started going to the Austin School of Massage.
Wow. Yeah, these things
So
can
that's
happen.
one of the things.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have many other stories that would bore people, but of the same type of quality where you wonder, how is that possible? How can I get a $2,500 check, one of the biggest checks I've ever got in the mail, by the way, without
Uh-huh.
selling my mobile home or something,
Right.
or an inheritance, which I got a small one at one time.
Uh-huh.
But here was the exact amount I asked for, too. I mean, within a
Yeah.
half hour, I get the check. So is that time travel? What did that? And again, my driver's license story,
Mm-hmm.
there's a bunch of them. And again, they would be boring because you can read about them in these yogi books. Many of them are false, but whenever you have counterfeit money, you also find they're based on real money. Mhm.
Yeah, it's so
Rumi
fast.
said that. Mhm.
So, Adam, what areas of I'm going to show your website, Solar Timing, right now, and I'm just curious, like what aspects of health are interesting you these days?
Particularly body dowsing and the subject we're having today. I'm really interested in getting beyond the paradigm of what we think we can do versus what we really can do.
Uh huh.
You'll notice a lot of timing things there. We have all kinds of sections. It's like a magic mountain for the mind. If you really go in there, I've got lots of things. That's our CEO of the company, by the way. He's got pretty good abs, doesn't he?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, look at that. Wow.
That's Guru Andricenti. He runs internet businesses and has other companies as well. And it, how we hooked up is interesting. I was on your show.
Uh huh.
I think it was your show. And I said, what I need is a internet guru. His name is Guru. And he says,
Oh,
I'm an
no way.
internet guy. So he called me up and said, you just asked for me. I said, okay. And so we've been doing this company now since 2013 or 14, somewhere back there.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's right. You started coming on around, I think 2013, early 2013 is when we first connected with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's about the time we met. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking at your SunSync Nutrition for people. So, wow, so much here. So much here. This is so cool. So you're working with Guru on this website as well, SunSync
Yes,
Nutrition.
the Solar Timing is where we sell our books. I have about 30 ebooks out now. And of course, we still have our paper book back that we do mail out, the Yes, No, Maybe Chronobiotic Nutrition. My co-author, Marcella Von Harding's a very interesting lady. She's studied with Tony Robbins. You can almost not name a person she hasn't studied with around the world. That's her
Wow.
thing. And she
Wow.
was a blessing to me because she's the one who said, I'm going to write this book with or without you when she found out about solar nutrition. She's the one that was invited to a houseboat on Lake Powell with them. And when I explained the way I ate, she said, let's try it. Let's, we have all the regular food here, including junk food that a family would bring. And we're going to eat it on the boat. You just show us how to eat it, and we'll do it your way. Well, by the end of the week, everybody was going to the bathroom so much. There's the solar chart.
Yeah.
Was going to the bathroom so much that they that I couldn't even get to the bathroom. I had to pee over the side of the boat. One of the ladies hadn't gone to the bathroom but once a week, and my co-author only went once every 3 weeks, and excuse me, once every 3 days. Don't want to make this greater than it is, and then she now goes to the bathroom 3 times a day. And that's pretty good from once every 3 days to 3 times a day. And she said, isn't that the bottom line? And that's exactly almost the specific words that my Swami friend Adonal Lay told me back in the day.
Wow. Wow. So when you were eating this way,
There is the chakra system, by the way. You notice the
yeah,
medulla oblongata is in the very back. And if you look closely, where you see migraines, just below eye problem, there's a flat spot in the skull that I didn't put into that picture. That slide you can press and increase the audible life stream by
uh,
pressing on that area.
interesting. So this area up top that I'm looking at, the psychic tiredness, isn't that where I'm thinking of this because of our twin boys right now, and their skulls sort of fusing together as babies. You know, that soft spot on top of a baby's head. Um, is that connected to what you have here, the psychic tiredness and brain drift?
Yes, it is. And of course, you get a power each way because basically the true chakras, not the reflexes in the spine, start right here with the 10,000 petal lotus called the 10th door. The other doors obviously being two here, one and two down here, etc. You add up to 9 doors, and the 10th door is you go here. This is the way out of the material universe, material,
Uh huh.
mater, like in alma mater, and up into the air. But we need both.
Uh huh.
We're designed to live in this reality right here, but to walk through the walls. That we're here to master that, not go to some astral level. In my dreams, I can do just about anything I want to. I was up in a satellite a couple of nights ago, and I was having my foot in the toilet in another night. So you can do just about anything you want to. But here, when you can walk through the wall, then you've done something. I'm not there yet. It's beyond my pain grade, but that's
Uh-huh.
my goal.
That's like the full Jedi master idea.
Yeah, a friend of mine levitated with the Donald Lay. He
Wow.
levitated with him. Now on radio, I couldn't tell his story because it's visual.
Uh huh.
They were all meditating, and around Adano, if he didn't want you to be awake, you fell asleep mysteriously. Well, my friend was awake, and so they both lifted off the chair, and then they went to this side, and then they went to that side, and then they went up, and then they went down. And then they sat there for a long time, and then everybody started waking up. And my friend goes over to Adano and said, Adano, how did we do that? And Adano said, easy, sister.
And what did that do?
It just showed that he went, in other words, up to the side. What's the big deal?
Wow. It's
Thought
like
I can't
a
show that on radio, but now I can show it.
yeah, yeah. Wow, what a trip. Gosh, and when did he pass?
He passed in 1989, and I'm
Nine.
not sure he passed because I could tell you stories about that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's
Uh,
crazy.
when he left, the scent of roses was there. I mean, he smelled like roses, and he wasn't decomposing like you're supposed to. And
Wow.
we had the mortician actually came to the funeral. He was so fascinated by what had happened. What was his name? It was named after a booze in Kentucky, or in Nashville, Tennessee, rather. But
Yeah.
anyway, after that, one of Donald's best friends and I flew back to California, and we got to her trailer, Airstream trailer. And when she opened the door, I could smell the scent of roses coming out of the trailer. So I said, wow, she left roses in there and they must have got decomposed. They've been there for like 2 weeks now. We've been gone.
Right.
So I walked in and I saw her crying. And right away I realized there were no roses there. No roses at all. And the St.
Wow.
Jude candle she had burned down and formed a heart in the wax and burned down.
Wow. That's
So,
crazy.
by the way, when my
Yeah.
mother was actually dying of pancreatic cancer, uh, I became very depressed. And so I had a statue of St. Jude that a very good friend had given me, the light bulb crusher, actually.
Uh-huh.
And I took that statue and I opened the mobile home door and I threw it out and smashed it on the driveway. And shortly after, I talked to Adano and I said, Adano, what can you do for my mother? He said, we're watching out for you. You know me and St. Jude.
Wow. Wow. And when did your mom
And of course,
pass?
I began crying some more.
Yeah.
She passed in 1984.
1984. Okay. Wow.
And
Wow.
there's an interesting story behind that, but I think we're running out of time here, aren't
Yeah.
we, pretty soon?
Yeah. So yeah, Adam, I wanted to ask you before we go, areas of interest. So are you doing any research, writing any new books, anything like that coming up?
I'm always writing a new book.
Yeah, I know, right?
I've written them on red light and everything. What I really would like to do is I've written so many blogs on mesmerism. I'd like to put that together, but it's been being put together for about a year, and for some reason I have been a slouch about that.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking of what is it? There's several other subjects involving body dowsing that I'd like to get out because this technique is not complicated.
Uh-huh.
Simply by grasping someone's feet, the video is on our site,
Okay.
you can feel the person's mind as they have traumas. Anything that's a trauma will show as on the left side, it will be a male trauma. On the right side, it will be a female trauma. And people who argue about left and right, because there's two schools of thought about that,
Right.
lots
Right.
of each way, you can prove it. You just turn the feet. And I took a friend of mine who said, I just went to a workshop and paid $600 and they told me that this is the female side and that is the male side. You're the only guy that's saying the opposite. I said, first of all, I'm not. In Chinese facial reading, this is the male, that is the female, it's the front of the body. And if you look at Indian sclerology, it's that way too. And if you
Interesting.
look in ancient Veda, it was the other way around before the forest scriptures switched it. So there's
Oh.
two schools of thought. So I said, can we do an experiment? I knew her husband had a mother trauma. So I said, can you lie on the floor? So he lay on the floor. And I had my friend take his feet and turn them like this very slowly. And I said, blank, I won't give his name,
Mm-hmm.
how's your mother doing? And she said, his right foot's jumping. And I said, is his mother a man or a woman?
Ah.
And then I said, you always have to look for the exception to the rule. If I take my glasses and I let them go, they drop to the floor. I don't have to read, do they go up or down?
Mm-hmm.
However, if I'm up in a space station and drop them, I might be in for a surprise.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, there's always an exception to the rule, isn't there?
Always. And
Always.
that's the beauty of it. And one time, to give you an idea of how we have this ability, I got in trouble with the Donald Lay for changing the weather. So I stopped doing it. But I learned a loophole. So with my friend, we went to New Orleans, and she said, oh my God, I just heard it's going to be really, really hot in August. And I said, the cosmic initiate does not live the life of statistics. They live the life of the exception to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, are you saying that the weather is going to be cool? I'm saying, I don't know. Hey, we won't know till we get there. So we got there. We stayed for 4 days. 2 of the days with a record-breaking cold for August for Louisiana history,
Wow.
and the other 2 days tied it. And after we left, my friend said, is it going to get hot as soon as we leave now? I said, I don't know. All I can say is the cosmic initiate doesn't live the life of the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
And that way I'm legally clear from changing and manipulating and doing voodoo and applied kinesiology at a distance and distance healing and all that good stuff.
That's so funny. I love that term, the cosmic initiate. That's so good. That's so good. All right, Adam. Well, I'm going to let you go because we've been going for almost about an hour and 40 minutes. So your website is SunSync Nutrition, right? And
that's the pay one. The solartiming.com is absolutely free. All the books are on there. And check out the graphics under, I forget what the title is, but a friend of mine does all these comical cartoons of me. There's about 33 of them in that one category. If you use the little, what do you call a little side thing that you click photographs in a row? There must be a technical name for that thing.
Oh, yeah, like a carousel kind of a thing?
Yeah. There's a carousel. So one of it that has a funny picture of me that our friend in Belgium, who is a our computer guy, he does wonderful things. Let's see if I can see it here. Funny pictures, funny
I
pictures. Go to
think
funny pictures.
yeah, I just found it. Oh
There it is.
yeah,
See?
I've seen some of these.
And
Yeah.
now use the little thing on the side there and see what happens.
Oh my
It goes
goodness.
on and on and on.
That is
He's
hilarious.
very creative guy. That's
So
Vibrant Gal.
so he does all this stuff.
All of them.
Oh my
He's
gosh.
hilarious. We love the guy. I'm
That,
not going to give his name because he sometimes wants to be secret, but I'll give you your name anytime, blank, 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 when you
oh
let
my
us
gosh.
know.
That
He's
is
hilarious.
that's too
Look
good.
at his stuff. I
Oh,
just love it.
oh my gosh, that's too good.
Every time I look at it, I get a laugh out of it.
Oh my gosh, that's too good. All right, so solar timing. So if you guys want to check out those pictures, those are pretty funny. They're on solartiming.com, and Adam's pay website is called sunsyncnutrition.com, and we'll put links in the show notes below this. But Adam, my friend, thanks for being on again. It's been way too long. We've had so much
Yeah.
going on with us lately, so I appreciate your time, and I'm glad to reconnect with you. It's been quite some time, hasn't it?
It has been, and I'm glad for your twins and everybody's healthy. Say hi to Kate and say hi to Will and Ben.
I will. I definitely will. And Kate says hello as well. She was bummed she couldn't be on this one. So maybe next time. That would be fun.
Next time, you bet.
Awesome.
Sometime come up to Montecito and check out the Santa Barbara Farmers Market. It is the bomb.
Oh, man. When does that happen every day or every week?
Every week on Saturday, it's been going on a long time, and try the Barhi dates from
Oh.
Katie at the market.
Ooh.
Man, those dates are, we can't go back to Majules anymore. The Barhis are so good.
Oh, that's too good. That's too good. All right, Adam. Well, thank you so much, my friend. We'll be in touch soon, and I'll send you a link as soon as this gets posted, and I will talk to you very soon.
All right. Good
Awesome.
talking to you.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Bright sun of
Whoops. Oh, sorry about that. I actually cut Adam off there. I apologize for that. So, my goodness, guys, what did you think of Mr. Atom Bergstrom? Yeah. What an awesome guest. It's been a long time. I think a lot of people that are in the chat room, it looks like you guys haven't heard his material or haven't heard his stuff. And he's a really interesting guy, isn't he? Atom Bergstrom. Yeah, he's been on the show, like I mentioned, about 20 different times. And what I like about what he's saying is that, living in the mystery is, for me, something that's really something I think is very important for us to do. Like I said before on the show, that, I have a friend whose son just passed away from some kind of sarcoma. And, I think it's when you live in this sort of westernized world that's where everything is sort of, it's a construct where everything makes sense, and we live by the rules of science. I think that you close yourself off to a lot of possibility. And like David Wolf says, the only disease is a closed mind. And you don't actively have to have a closed mind to close yourself off from possibility. You don't have to actively have that. You can just be skeptical of everything, or you could just be someone who really loves science and sort of worships science a little too much, and that will close off possibility from coming to you. And so that's why I think it's ultimately super important for all of us to have an open mind and to be able to live in that mystery and to be able to live in that space where of infinite possibility of anything is possible. And that's my favorite place to live in. A lot of people they don't feel like, they just don't feel comfortable living in that way because everything is in flux. You live in this infinite possibility of any number of things happening, and people like to have their life figured out. People like to have everything figured out and everything working, and everyone's acting according to the way they think they should act, and all of that stuff. And so I don't know. I don't think true healing. I think true healing happens in the state of possibility, in that quantum sort of state. So Adam mentioned on the show a little bit about water, and I wanted to tell you guys of a new sort of product that we put into our store one that we have ourselves. And I've had this for probably close to a year now, the Omica water. It's a 12-stage RO reverse osmosis. It's actually beyond reverse osmosis, but it's the most comprehensive water filtration system that I know of. And I talk with Rafi, who's the owner of Omica, for multiple times on the phone, and just kind of picking his brain and getting him to answer my questions about what it does and how effective it is and how often that you need to change, the system. And, he's like a mad scientist. And so it's so important when Adam mentioned water. Like, water is so super important. It becomes our blood. It's the first place that we should start focusing our health on is the water that we drink. And and so this RO system by Omica is I love this stuff. I love it. We have it installed underneath our sink. We actually have it's a 12-stage RO water filtration system, but we also have a whole house filter, and then we have a Berkey as well. So we kind of use all three in conjunction with each other. But there's over, some studies are showing now, 24,000 different chemicals that are in your water, in municipal tap water. There's parasites, homeopathic residues of chemotherapy, tampons, chemical drugs people are excreting when they're going to the bathroom, when 1 out of every 2 people in America are on some sort of pharmaceutical medication. All of that stuff gets reintroduced into the water supply, and then that gets allegedly sort of filtered and given back to us, but it's really not. And so it's really important to have low TDS, low acid water, and this is what the Omica does. I'm a really big fan of them. I also wanted to tell you guys about, I don't know if you have tried the Stockton Aloe One yet, but I'm telling you guys, aloe vera is unbelievable in terms of what it can do for your body. It's so incredible for just being able to heal the gut, and it's antiviral, it's antifungal, it's just incredible. It contains 75 different compounds, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, unique sugars like polysaccharides, mannose, lignans. It's really incredible. And what I love about it too is it has this sort of powerful component in it called ace-mannan, and it helps to stimulate. It's an immune stimulator, so it helps to induce macrophages to produce interferon and interleukins and tumor necrosis factor A in the body. And what all that means is that it stimulates immunity. And so with the fall season coming up and people telling us that we have the flu season is upon us, and I would highly recommend trying some of this Stockton Aloe One. It comes to you frozen. It's freshly harvested, and it's never heated, it's never processed, it's never, it's so pure, and they actually freeze it right there, right after they pick it, and they harvest it and then bottle it for you, and then it comes in, frozen. And if you really want to improve your digestion and improve your health, your overall health, aloe vera is one of the most magical plants that you can consume daily. It also has something that's unique that we did a whole show on years ago, all about ormus. And ormus is like this magical substance that some people say is like the frequency of a mineral before it becomes a mineral. And some people have talked about how certain substances contain ormus, and then you can hyperconcentrate those substances, the ormus, and then reintroduce that back into your plants. And it's been known to escape glass bottles that are sealed. It's just like this weird sort of substance that lives and dances in between the physical and the spiritual, this thing called ormus. And you can do a whole research on what ormus is if you guys like. But aloe vera has lots. It is loaded with this ormus. And it's a tremendous product, this stuff. And I don't know if you guys have ever taken aloe vera from the store, but it's always got some excipients, some other chemicals, and some other ingredients on there. But you really want to make sure that you're getting just the aloe vera, and that's exactly what Stockton Aloe One is. It's something that I stand behind and love this stuff, and really, really proud to have them in our store now. So really excited about that. So for those of you that are in the chat room, let's see if you guys are chit-chatting away here. Let's see. P900 says that he or she has to go, but we'll come back and check it out later. Let's see if there's anybody else chit-chatting. I can hang out for a couple more minutes and hang out and answer some questions and hang out with you guys if you like. Or I could just take off, and we're going to have another couple shows on Monday. We've got a cool lineup here coming up. All kinds of new shows coming up. Let me bring up our page so you guys can check it out. On Monday, we're going to have like a dual show. So on Monday, we're having at 9 a.m. Pacific time, Dr. Thomas Cowan, and we're going to be talking with him about his book, Autoimmunity and the Changing Face of Childhood Illness. And you guys are really going to want to watch or listen or join this one live because Dr. Cowan, he's the author, I think, of a book called The Heart is Not a Pump. And he's a cardiologist up in San Francisco. But we've had him on a couple times. And he's not going to give you the same sort of stuff like, oh, vaccines are bad and here's why. He's going to talk about like what vaccines do to the body and also what happens to your body when you don't allow yourself to go through the immune system response that your body should have to conditions like, chicken pox and mumps and rubella. And all of these are significant markers in a child's life of ending of one phase of their existence and entering into a new phase. And what happens when you don't allow a child to go through and enter into that new phase? And what happens to the immune system when you don't allow the immune system to operate and to build antibodies to these things, and what happens later in life as a result of getting a vaccine and not allowing your body to go through this stuff. So it's going to be a fascinating show. Dr. Thomas Cowan is one of our most popular guests. And so we also have on the Monday, the September 10th, that's right. Yeah. Wait, no, is that right? Yeah, that's right. Wow, I thought it was like the 3rd of September. I'm all mixed up. Ian Jacqueline is going to be on at 10:45, and he is he's an actor, but he's a cancer coach, and he's been doing some cool things with documentaries and cancer. And then we have Dr. William Wong, who's been on the show one time before. Really cool guy. He's out of Texas, and we're going to be talking about hormones, strength, longevity, sex drive, all that good stuff. That's kind of Dr. Wong's expertise, so we'll be talking about that Wednesday, September 12th. And we got Brian Hoyer coming up. We'll be talking with him about EMF solutions that you can practically implement into your home to block non-native EMF, to block blue light, to block wireless, to block 5G. All this stuff is a radical assault to our immune system and to our bodies. And so we need practical solutions that are going to help block this stuff because we really want to mimic nature to the best extent that we possibly can, is to mimic nature so that we can live in harmony with nature because that is what promotes health. So all of that is available on our webpage, extremehealthradio.com, if you want to check out the upcoming show schedule. But all of our shows are Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. If you want to join and ask your questions and be a part of the chat room, got a lot of cool people here. Tammy says, B-Light says, congrats on the twins. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The twins are doing so good. I should share a story about how they're sleeping for 12 hours a night. Our twins are sleeping for 12 hours. I can't believe it. I mean, we're doing a lot of things, and maybe I could do a video about it or talk about it if you guys want to help them sleep for 12 hours a night. It's absolutely incredible. So thank you, B-Light. I appreciate that. Tammy says, what do you think about taking vitamin D supplements? I'm starting to look at research that's showing that taking a vitamin D supplement might not be the best option for you. There's a lot of people now saying that you should avoid exogenous compounds that your body is supposed to make. So your body's supposed to make, there's already an internal mechanism for you to absorb, uptake, and utilize vitamin D. And so when we take that as an exogenous supplement, that might not be the best approach. Now, that all depends. Maybe your vitamin D levels are, extremely low, or maybe you live way up in Canada and your vitamin D is very, very low. So there could be times where vitamin D orally, but when you take D3, make sure you're taking it with K2 as well. There's been some studies showing that there's a connection between the two in terms of absorbability. So, but for me, we live in Southern California, so I'm very fortunate for that. And I get out in the sun as much as I possibly can, and I try to do things that will help me uptake more light into my into the photoreceptors in my skin, so that I can uptake and utilize vitamin D3. So there's a bunch of different things people can do to make sure that their bodies can absorb more vitamin D from the sun. B-Light says, who feels completely alone in this walking around with tinted glasses inside, no glasses outside? What are you saying, B-Light? Who feels completely alone in this walking around with tinted glasses inside and no glasses outside? Yeah, I kind of do, for sure. I'm always wearing glasses when I'm inside, and I don't have any, when I go outside. So, yeah, it does feel kind of weird, especially when you have people over at night who don't understand anything about how you live. It's pretty kind of crazy, right? Like, you just feel so like you have to explain everything to them, and it's kind of odd. The trick is to surround yourself with people who understand you and are like-minded. That's the real trick. But sometimes we can't do that because we have family members, we have friends that come over that don't necessarily understand everything, that we're doing. But ZZ Captain says lots of plastics in bottled water at the microscopic level. Yeah, bottled water is most of it is just recycled or refiltered tap water, municipal water that has over 24,000 different chemicals, or 25,000. I forget what the number was. Along with the plastics. So you definitely want to avoid plastics. Huge endocrine disruptors, hormonal disruptors, not good. And not good for the environment too. Wow, Tammy, how did I know that you were in Alaska or Canada? That's crazy. I'm in Alaska and having to get ready for our dark winter. Yeah, you know what? I would, there are foods that have vitamin D3 in it as well. I don't recall what they are. I think, are they fish? There's certain type of, they make vitamin D from, I think, sheep's wool, don't they? But then you can also get it from some kind of algae as well. But yeah, getting ready for the dark winter, you might definitely want to take some vitamin D3. I would take it. I like the stuff from Surthrival. I'll put that in the link if you guys want to check it out. It is extremehealthradio.com/Surthrival. They have a vitamin D3 liquid that I really like. And it's combined with K2. And so you might want to look at that, Tammy. But I hear what you're saying. If you're in Alaska, you definitely want to use some things to bring in some more light in your life. Ultimately, human beings are supposed to be in the sun. And let me give you some ideas for light, bringing more light into your life during the winter months. There's a product called Human Charger that you're definitely going to want to look at. And basically, it looks like an iPod, but what you put in your ears is full spectrum light. It's a supplement, so it's not as good as, obviously the sun. But if you're in Alaska and you don't have access to the sun, this is something that you'll want to look at as well as red light too. Red light therapy is tremendously healing and tremendously beneficial to the mitochondria, to our body's ability to uptake water, to use other forms and frequencies of light. Red light is the healing bandwidth and the healing frequency that you want to get as much of. And you want to pre-dose your body if you can every day with light. There's also an interesting device called the Quantlet, Quantlet. And that uses I think it's a purple and blue light on the radial ulnar artery, or right at your wrist, and it pulses light into your body through your wrist. It's pretty interesting. So you want to look at like the Quantlet. We like the Juve. It's in our store, the Juve red light therapy device, as well as the Human Charger. And then you want to take things that will allow your body to take in more light as well. Like, you want to make sure your skin is clean. If you want to bring in more light to your, solar panel, which is your skin, you want to make sure that all of the toxins and chemicals are brushed off your skin. So skin brushing, sauna therapy, these are all great things. Saunas themselves have far infrared light in them. If you have a far infrared sauna, we have the the relaxed far infrared sauna in our store. You don't have to get that one. That's the one we use. That's the one we like. So there's, far infrared light. There's obviously the light from the sun, but then there's artificial light too. So there's a lot of different ways to get more light if you're living in a place like Alaska. I could email you some more ideas and tips and things. Maybe I'll do a whole video about that. I think that would be good. You should do a show on how families live different, Lisa says. Do you mean like a radio show for Extreme Health Radio, like talking about how we live different from other people? I swear if you walked up to our house at night, it would just be red light coming from every window. It's I put a picture of this actually on our Instagram with our Juve light, and it's pretty funny. So Tammy says, yeah, you bought an FDA approved light. Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you optimize your light environment. If you're living in Alaska, the ultimate solution, Tammy, is to move to a place where you can get more light. Yeah, I know that's hard to do, but it's hard to convince folks we need to live differently today from toxins, etc. Yeah, you're so right, Lisa. People just don't understand that the environment they're living in is extremely toxic. And what's happening is we're sort of being lulled to sleep, and all of these laws are being passed in the background of our lives, and we don't hear about them. So you're always like familiar with how Congress will pass laws, on Christmas Eve, or they did that with the what is the act they did in 1913? I haven't studied it in so long. What is that? The 1913, the banking system, they passed that, on Christmas Eve and Jekyll Island, and they pass these laws, and they allow for more chemicals to come into our life, and for companies to create more and more chemicals. But you don't hear about them on the news. And so we just continue along thinking that we live in the same world that we did when it was 1985, but we just don't. And so the default state of existence is extremely toxic, and just no one is talking about it. No one knows it. And so that's why it's important for all of us, if we want to be at the top, if we want to be at the peak performance and have optimal health, that's why it's super important to look at the stuff that's happening and learn how we can mitigate all of the different things that are happening in our environment, whether it's like glyphosate, whether it's blue light, whether it's 5G that's on its way, whether it's more and more chemicals happening. So that's why it's really important to understand that we don't live in the same world. I mean, I grew up in the early 80s, and it was a different world back then. But if I just continue along with my existence, I don't think about things. I don't think that there's 20,000 new chemicals introduced into our environment every year. I don't think about that. It just seems like the same old place that we lived in before until you start looking into it. And so, when people don't, look into it, Lisa, it's exactly what you're saying, because they need to be convinced. And so it becomes this thing where we're trying to convince them that they live in a toxic environment. But you can just look at the stats and look at the studies and look at what's going on. You can see people getting sicker and sicker. And I think this generation is one of the first generations of children that are not going to live as long as their parents did. And so it's a real epidemic that's not being talked about. And so, if you're okay with all that, then continue living your life like we're talking about with Atom Bergstrom, with George Burns, different comedians and people that live long lives but very toxic lifestyles. So it is possible to live a long time and to not take care of your health. But if you do that, in my opinion, you're just playing Russian roulette, right? You are just throwing caution to the wind and letting the stats. The stats are 1 out of 3 women get a cancer diagnosis every day. The stats are that 1 out of every 2 men get diagnosis with cancer. Those are just the stats. And 21 to 22,000 people around the world every day die of cancer. That's just cancer. That's not counting heart disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, ADD, dementia, all of these things that are just autoimmune diseases that are just running rampant in our culture today. So you can just look at those numbers and just realize like something's wrong. Something's wrong with the way we're living. It's not normal to wake up and to send your kids to school. There's 4 or 5 people in a home and they all go somewhere different for the day. And they all go to a place that's incredibly toxic. doing a toxic job, and then to come home and to wonder why we can't speak to one another or why we have a hard time communicating. This isn't normal. The system they've set up for us is not normal. We think it is because that's what everybody else does, but it's just not. It's not normal to live like that. And so that's the problem, is that when people love the system they live in, and they've done a beautiful job making us all love where we live and what they've done to allow for, communication and cell phones and technology. But when you start realizing that this stuff is not normal, not only is it not normal, it's incredibly damaging to our health. This stuff is really incredibly damaging to our health. So if we just live that default normal state, then, it's not going to be good for us. Like what did Atom Bergstrom say on the show? What were his words? I forget. He had a really cool phrase he said there at the end about cosmic something. I forget. But this default state that we're living is not normal. And that's what we're trying to do with Extreme Health Radio. That's what we're doing with the Extreme Health Academy, is trying to educate people, as many people as we possibly can, how to mitigate all of the toxicities that are coming at us so fast in today's world. How do we overcome that? What strategies and tips and substances can we take? What new mindset shifts can we adopt? What new changes in lifestyle can we start implementing that will help us, give us the tools to get that strength back in our immune system? Because that's where we need to be, is healthy, happy. Yeah, that's right. ZZ Captain, Cosmic Initiate. I love that. Yeah, that was so cool. So, like, what can we do that's going to help bolster our immune system so that we can be strong and happy and healthy? That's what we're trying to do on Extreme Health Radio, is give you guys the tools and all of the information that can help you guys. And me too. I'm right there with you, because I'm human, just living the same kind of life you are, doing my best to mitigate all of the toxicities coming at me. So, that's why. Let me put a link to the Extreme Health Academy. If you really guys, want to take things way further, we talk a lot of theory on Extreme Health Radio, extremehealthacademy.com. And if you want to use the code EHR14, you can get a 14-day trial. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to tell you guys too that if you purchase any of the products in our store, I'll give you a 30-day trial to the Extreme Health Academy. So just send me a receipt and let me know, what you buy and when you bought it and all that good stuff. And if I can verify it that you bought through our store, I'll give you a coupon code to get 30 days off for the Extreme Health Academy. But that's our labor of love for you guys, is to educate, give the tools and the empowerment, inspiration, community of all kinds of crazy people like us, helping each other get to that next level. So Raymond says, not much vitamin D in beef liver, less than 20 IUs per 100 grams. And when you are looking to have 5,000 units per day vitamin D, that's very small. Yeah, you'd have to eat a lot of beef liver for that. That's why we're made to get vitamin D through our eyes, my friends, through the sun every morning upon first rising. That's when we're supposed to be making vitamin D, from the sun exposure. That's why all clothes and sunglasses come off outside and everything goes on inside. Put the blue blocking glasses on inside, the clothes, all of that stuff goes on inside. And then when you're out, you get full absorption of that vitamin D through your skin. So that's why it's super, super important. I've stopped taking vitamin D myself, for what it's worth, Tammy. I spend more and more time in the sun. But here's the thing, is like, when we can do things artificially that should be a part of our lifestyle through supplementation, then it gives us the false sense of security that the supplementation is the actual thing and is as effective as the actual change in lifestyle. So the change in lifestyle should be getting in the sun more and spending more time outside. But since that's so hard to do, we fool ourselves into thinking that taking a vitamin D supplement, exogenous, that's going to decouple the mechanisms in our body that actually that actually make the vitamin D inside of us. We think that taking the vitamin D supplement is going to be good and healthy. And so it's a false sense of security for that. So that's why I think it's really important to make sure that our lifestyle is one that sustains health and is really beneficial for us. So in any event, that was episode 601. So I'll put the links to this particular show page at extremehealthradio.com/601. And if you guys want to check out the Extreme Health Academy, please feel free to do that. Teresa King says, is covering your neck thyroid with a scarf enough protection for your thyroid? Yes, it is, Teresa. It's funny you mentioned that because I've been doing that probably the last few months, making sure my neck and thyroid are covered when I'm exposed to blue light inside. In fact, I was doing that last night. I was covering my neck. There were a couple times where I was using Photoshop and I had to see color. And so I use a program on my computer called Iris, and that blocks all the blue light. And so I needed to see if something was white instead of yellow. So I had to disable Iris for about 30 seconds. And so what I did was Iris Tech, that's available in our store if you guys want to get access to that. It's $15, the best $15 you'll ever spend. I can't live without it now. It's on all my computers. But I disabled it because I needed to see a certain color last night. And when I did, I put on the Blue Blocks glasses, the ones I have now. I have a stronger pair from Andy Man over at Blue Blocks. Those blue blockers are also available on our store too if you guys want them. But I put on the stronger pair, and then I covered my thyroid with some clothing, and then turned it back. I turned Iris back on. But yeah, it's super important. A lot of people aren't talking about how important that is to make sure to cover your neck and your thyroid glands and all of your skin, if you can, from toxic blue light. So, all right, guys, I'm going to let you guys enjoy your Friday afternoon. This show is going to be available as a podcast. It's going to be quite some time. So the best thing would be to just join us on YouTube, and that way you get access to all the shows as they happen Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time, if you guys want to join us. So love you guys. Make sure to join us this Monday with Mr. Thomas Cowan and Mr. Ian Jacklin. That's going to be an awesome show. So make sure to join us this Monday with Thomas Cowan and Ian Jacklin. So love you guys very, very much, and I will catch you guys on the next episode.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use,